Welcome to the Risk of Insanity podcast. This is Alex.
And I'm Shandor. Today, we're going to be talking about love. So, as you know, there's many different types of love, but how would you personally define love?
Love, most people I think define love as this feeling that they get, but I see it as more of an emotion that shows itself with action.
So it's an emotion, not a feeling.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a fine line. So more like an emotion like happiness or anger, and those emotions are shown through action.
Can you describe one of these actions?
I mean, doing something selfless for someone that, is close to you. There's actually this book, Fiddler on the Roof. The book Fiddler on the Roof, where one of the characters looks at the other character and asks, after 25 years of marriage, do you still love me? And she responds, for 25 years, I've washed your clothes, cooked your meals, cleaned the house, given you children, milked your cow. She then asks, if that's not love, what is? And of course you can perform or things for people and it not be for love. But I think the important fact there is, one, she did it. She's been doing it for 25 years and she still wants to be around for him.
Of course, and I think you bring up a really great point there, especially with marriage. Do you still love me? Because yeah. I feel like with romantic relationships, there's a difference between love and in love. Yeah. Because when couples are in love, then they still have that passionate aspect towards each other. Whereas if they just love each other, that could be after the fact, after a relationship ended, where they still love each other more.
So, I see what you mean there, but I think, in a long, successful relationship, you keep that passion alive. But, again, that is, let's be very clear, that is a romantic relationship. And there's definitely more forms of love than that. The first place, I'm not a religious person, but the first place love is mentioned in the Bible is right at the beginning in Genesis. I don't know, exactly where, but it's towards a child, not, romantically. It's the feeling of this thing or this being that I brought onto this earth. I'm willing to and want to do anything for it.
So then is love a base emotion that people feel? And then you get obviously towards the in love with romantic relationships, but is love the basic emotion people feel?
I think at the core, yeah. What a baby comes out and it feels love for its mother. Its mother immediately feels love for that baby. Because I think it's hard for people because of the context we normally see it in, that it has to be towards just a certain people. Mm-hmm. When love can be an emotion, an expressive emotion that we can... Because when you look at it as an emotion instead of just a feeling towards somebody, then that emotion, just like happiness or anger, can be expressed towards anyone, anything.
Absolutely. So then can love be considered unconditional?
In my opinion, yes. I know you view that differently. Because even in a romantic relationship, if my partner cheats on me, I'd probably be leaving that relationship. However, I would still have the emotion of love.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like that goes back to me saying with romantic relationships, especially, is that there's a difference between love and in love. Because you still might love that person even after they cheat on you, but you're not in love with them anymore.
Well, that's hard because, you might still feel some passion I think that's still possible, but you leaving the relationship has nothing to do with love. That's boundaries being crossed. That's the disrespect. That, there's different levels to that there, and I don't think the leaving of the relationship is the fact of love. The only argument I think that you could give there is that it is the fact of love is that their action towards you was not a loving action. In those actions of love, that in the way that is expressed, one of those things is the lack of egotism from you towards that other person. So not just thinking of you, but you think of them as well. You're always thinking of them and how they would feel, because that is important to you. And in that scenario, that person clearly did not give two craps how you would feel about it. That's not a loving act. But let's try to go to something else, like friends and family and things like that, because like we keep saying here, there's not just romantic love.
Of course, yeah, let's definitely shift it more towards the just generic love here. For now, I guess we can get into more of a specified sense of love in a further podcast. So then, how do you know when you love someone? Because there is this fine line. You don't just immediately love someone, in my opinion. I feel like there's this growth that goes into it. I didn't love my friends when I first met them. In fact, I disliked them. So when do you know that you feel this emotion, love?
When do you know you feel happy? When do you know you feel angry? It is something that can come and go. And the way I think you're asking about it right there is, how do you know, based on like, how do you recognize this feeling? But again, if we try to look at it as the emotion, not the feeling, the emotion can be expressed at any time you choose to. Just like happiness is a choice, anger is a choice. You may have quick reactions to things, but as we grow up and become more mature, we try to, recognize those quick actions that we are doing based off of a sudden pulse of emotion that comes up in us, that certain energy that comes up in us, and we try to recognize it.
You mentioned that happiness and anger and all of that, that's a choice. Is love also a choice then?
I believe yes. It's a choice that you make, that you can give love to whoever and whatever as much as you want.
So do you think there are people that don't or can't love?
I wouldn't say can't, but I would say choose not to. And I think there's different reasons for that. I think the most common would be not wanting to be hurt because they have been hurt by love before, whether that be by family or romantically. But, it leads back to some of the other things that we've talked about, with if you avoid the pain that love can cause, you avoid the good that it can bring. But love can bring feelings of hurt and feelings of great joy.
So it's the sense that you want to love because without love, yes, you won't feel the pain, but you will never get the other feelings of happiness and fulfillment that also come with it when the love is in a good place.
Yeah. And as very social creatures, love is obviously a very important thing. If you just look at pop culture, love is absolutely everywhere. Through music, TV shows, movies, books, poetry, art, love is absolutely slapped on almost all of those mediums.
Do you think love is then over glorified or misrepresented because it's so abundant? Or do you think the opposite, where we are trying to fulfill ourselves with love, and that's why everyone puts out these ideal images of love because that's what they're searching for?
Wow, those are some loaded questions. Let's start with the first one. Is it over glorified? I mean, if you just watch a rom-com or just a romantic movie, I think we can come to the conclusion it is pretty glorified. But how could it not be when it is such an integral part to our society, and how like socialistically humans work. And then what exactly was the other thing?
Is love misrepresented?
Yeah. I mean, most of the time when someone comes at you and says, "I love you," in today's society, we go towards a romantic love. Our head just kind of goes that direction because that's almost the only way it's really represented constantly. Besides, okay, yeah, I love my children, I love my dog, but then when it comes to loving, others, loving just someone walking down the road, you can't feel that anymore. And that's where I really find that line of, it's not a feeling, it's an emotion. Because you are capable of giving off love to a homeless man. Doing something nice for him, walking him down the street to the gas station, buying him a bag of chips and an apple and a drink. That is an act of love.
So then, do you need an emotional connection with another person to show love, to experience love, or is that not necessary?
To show love or experience it, no. But to really go deeper on it, I would say yes. Because that's where we get into that in love, romantically. Because I think that emotion starts getting stronger, just like happiness and anger can be stronger and weaker in certain moments. Love can also be like that, and the things that I've found in my experience that help the strength of that feeling of love, is time, sharing experiences with someone. That is huge, because in not just sharing the experience in that moment, you're sharing, how you're feeling, you're experiencing the same thing, and that builds relatability and what we have not just to talk about, but what we felt in that situation.
I think you make a really good point there, especially with relatability. And bringing this back to kind of pop culture here is, do you think that's why there's so much love movies and songs out, because it's relatable and that's what would make the song popular, or because it's something that they're searching for?
Yes. They're searching for it, and that's what will make it popular, because deep down everybody wants love. We're social creatures, and we want others to want us, appreciate us, value us, and we like doing that to others. Even to dogs. It's just, why can't we? What kind of baffles me sometimes is, why can't we do it to other animals and strangers that aren't in our immediate life all the time? Mm-hmm. We can do it to a random stranger dog that's walking down the street, but suddenly if that's a human, we have an issue with it. It's kind of a weird concept.
So that kind of brings us to expressing ourselves with love, right? Why do people express themselves in different ways? Why can some express themselves better than others? And what goes into expressing yourself in a specific way with love?
Can you give me an example about like expressing? Some can express themselves with love better than others.
Well, there's the typical, you will hug your friend, right? But you can't hug a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
There's the
I wouldn't say that's necessarily expression of love, more of comfortability with the person, showing vulnerability with them. It's like a dog willing to lay on its dog or cat willing to lay on its back and show its most vulnerable spot, or turn its back to you.
What would you define as an expression of love then?
Something that's very important to them, like you really like cars, and I know your favorite car, and I get you a nice replica of that car, or I'd even draw it for you. Drawing it for you would probably be even a bigger expression of love, because I took my time and effort into doing that for you. It wasn't an act. I wasn't drawing it because I wanted to draw a car. I was drawing it because it was an act for you.
So is it that personal touch that you did something for them that expresses it, or is it the act of the knowledge that you know what they like?
I think it's kind of a combination of the two, where you kind of learn through the experiences with them. You learn about that person, and then you can act upon that and show your love based on the previous learning and experiences that you had with them.
So if someone didn't know how to express themselves, how would you recommend that they try to progress to being able to express themselves?
Well, that's a good question, because not everyone, including myself, are going to have a good representation or example of how to do so. I think part of conquering that is defining love for yourself and what you want it to be, or how you really want to be able to show it to the people that matter to you. Because actions do speak louder than words, especially when it comes to love. I mean, when someone says A but does B, they're trying to get you to believe A, but what they are and who they are is really B.
Do you think that could be because they're trying to trick themselves into think that they are A and not B?
That's a whole ego problem, and that's a little different, but that is a possibility. Someone trying to believe that this is how they are, and they haven't had much self-reflection in their life, haven't practiced looking in the mirror, figuratively and realistically, looking in the mirror at themselves. But a lot of times that comes down to people, especially nowadays in society, do not slow down. We're constantly from one thing to the next, and these things are constantly telling us who we are and what to be, how to act, instead of us slowing down and actually choosing it for ourselves. Which, by looking at it like that, shows us how big in society things like Netflix are, and just movies and TV shows, and people constantly watching these things. And so if you have something that's constantly showing you that love is this, obviously that's kind of what you're going to believe, and that's kind of where your mental story of what it's supposed to be, in how it's supposed to manifest in your life and how you're supposed to act about it, is going to come out.
I really like that. So do you think then, instead of looking at all these other examples of love, you should focus on yourself? Find how you would be willing to express love to yourself.
Yes. That right there.
Before you express love to others.
Yes, absolutely. And learning to love yourself is enormous. And so I love that you brought that up, because then let's look at what's a loving act towards yourself. That's what would be a loving act towards yourself?
I would consider a loving act towards myself to be something that makes me better off than I was before, even if it's more delayed gratification than instant gratification. So, for example, eating healthier or working out to keep myself not feeling terrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or to treat myself to get this a book to learn, or an educational video, rather than, let's say, wasting 30 minutes watching a highlight reel of a TV show, because I will gain something out of it rather than lose the time.
Yeah, we have a very finite time on this earth. But no, absolutely. Everyone's going to, use slightly different words to kind of define that. But I think you're hitting something on the nose right there. And again, with my freaking idol, Will Smith over here, he has this whole thing about self-discipline is self-love, and how, some of his examples always are, that pizza looks really good, but you know what? I love you too much to let you eat that. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to be slow. You're going to feel tired and lethargic. I love you too much to let you do that. And him relating it in that way actually helped me greatly during a time when I was struggling, trying to figure out how to love myself. And once I got that, I guess, perspective, or, different way of looking at it, and think the narrative, that's a good way of putting it. How you always say, it's about the narrative we kind of tell ourselves. And once I had that different narrative to kind of put into my head, and, it took a sec to kind of implement it, and still sometimes I catch myself, I'm like, what are you doing, Alex? But to tell myself, you know what, I love myself too much to have that chips and queso. Like, yeah, it'll taste good, but I love myself too much to deal with the stomach ache and the toilet afterwards. And that's what it came down to now with, like, sweets and stuff for me, is because I don't eat sweets much. I love myself too much to put myself through the anxiety that can come from that amount of sugar, and just honestly the stomach ache that'll come from it.
I think the first thing I should point out is we got to get Will Smith on the show.
Goal for Risk of Insanity podcast, get Will Smith on the show. We're setting it right now, episode 4. Will Smith, I hope you hear this one day. By episode 40, you're going to be on the show.
But I think you bring really great points up, is that you have to think about what you feel when you do something, so you can feel better. You do the right thing to improve yourself. This kind of goes back to episode 1 about habits, right?
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
I think habits also stem from love, right? Especially good habits.
Okay, yeah. I could see that. Trying to form those good habits. Like, why would you work towards good habits if you don't love yourself? Why would you, if you don't love yourself and want better for yourself, how could you truly want better for others as well? Yeah, you could, but to really put forth the effort and do it more than just saying it, I think that's a very hard line right there. I mean, even now, like, I tend to put others before me. I still love myself, but, I had to get back from my friend's house with my motorcycle, and I only had one helmet at the time, but we had to come back. There was no other way. I gave them the motorcycle helmet and the riding jacket. I put my sunglasses on to protect my eyes from debris, and I rode carefully and slowly. But I love them. I do love myself, so I rode slowly, but I love them, so I rather them be protected, just in case. I did that because I value them and did the action of love. Because when one person believes in someone else and shows it, I think right there, that's love.
I definitely agree with that. To go back to your example, though, I would kind of put an asterisk next to it because everyone always says, I love you so much I would die for you. But I think it's a bigger, more fulfilling sign of love to say, I love you, so I'm going to live for you.
Wow, that's a strong statement right there, my friend. Coming from you. Someone who has struggled with the idea of what really love is to you. I mean, you're in a time of your life where you really are just defining a lot of things for yourself, which, it's a beautiful thing to watch. But, that's a strong statement. And I think I'd agree. Yeah. Not just die for you, I'd live for you. It's easy to die. You can destroy something in 2 seconds, but it takes a lot of patience and love to hold on, to build, to put something back together. That's, wow. Some strong stuff there, buddy.
Definitely. Going back to the whole self-love, though, I just want to point out that sometimes it is important to put yourself first. And it's not selfish to...
If you're not first, you're last. Mr. Racer.
I've lived with that phrase a long time. And this also can bode true for this situation as well. Okay. Sometimes, yes, you need to love others, but sometimes you need to put yourself first. Because if you don't love yourself, how can you love others?
It's that basic principle of put on your oxygen mask before you help anyone else on the airplane. If you're not 100%, you can't help someone to the best of your ability. That's kind of that basic, when you break it down, that's that basic point of you have to love yourself before you can really truly love others. Because if you don't have 100% for you, you can't have 100% for someone else. And sorry, then what's the point of doing it if you're half-assing it? I mean, the point is so you can still express some love, yeah, but if you can do it more and better and feel it better and help them feel it better, why not? Plus, so developing it in yourself before you start giving it. It's like filling the glass of water before you try to share it. If you only have a couple sips in there, how are you supposed to share?
Definitely. And on that same topic here is there a certain amount of limit of love that you can give? Or can you spread yourself too thin? Is it possible?
I don't think you can spread yourself too thin with love, but you can spread yourself too thin with action. The physical manifestation of the emotion that can be... You can stretch yourself too thin with that and burn yourself out. I mean, you see people do it when they love their job. The difference with people and like loving a job or a car or something is when you love an object or an action, like your job or playing chess or playing basketball, that's one way. It's one direction. Whereas loving humans or animals... I'll say animals because, dogs and cats, horses, elephants, whatever. We think of dogs, cats the most. But all animals, it's love and be loved.
So what happens when the love isn't reciprocated?
I think we have a tendency or an immediate go-to of feeling hurt. But that's loving with expectation. That is conditional love. And
what if the love is never reciprocated? You have no expectation going in. Isn't that just something that hurts you and you can't overcome that? Some people stay with someone, friendship-wise or relationship-wise, that the love isn't reciprocated.
Why is it hurting you? If you don't have an expectation of anything in return, why is it hurting you? See, it's a hard question to answer. I when someone doesn't love me back or show an act of love back, I don't feel hurt. You know, I definitely used to, and still now it can kind of throw me off a little. But I don't feel hurt because someone's actions towards you usually is very rarely anything to do with you. Is everything to do with what's going on inside of them. And I don't care what they do to me. Love, compassion, kindness will always be better than greed, anger, and hate. You can just give it. They can receive it. If they don't give it back, that's okay. It's not, I give you this $1 to be nice and expect you to give me $1 back. No, take the $1. See ya. That's okay. Bye.
That's going back to the physical acts of love, though. But what if with the person that's still the same one-directional love?
Okay, so you're trying to get at it as, relationshiply, like with a significant other, like
not necessarily
or someone you want to be a significant other.
It could even be with friends.
Okay.
If the love is going in one direction, similar to an object, it's still draining. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be an emotional punching bag.
Okay. Oh, true, 100%. So then, what would be the act of love for you in that situation?
What do you mean here?
So if you are in a situation where you're constantly giving love to someone and not receiving any of that energy back, there's no reason why you can't give them that energy, but why would you go out of your way to give them that energy? If someone is not grateful for something you are giving them, doing more of it or continuing to do it will not make them any more grateful, will not make them appreciate it any more than they already weren't. So in that moment, I'd say, that's do the loving act. Now it's time for the loving act for you, right? And the loving act towards yourself would be, okay, put my love where it is appreciated, and if that's spending less time with that person, so be it. And they might realize in that moment that, they did appreciate it, and they might try to come back. And that's the moment of truth right there. If someone comes back, or you just see them walking down the street and they're all nice and say hi, they haven't reciprocated any love. That's the moment of truth. That's where it's difficult, but there's no reason why you have to show resentment or hate.
I wasn't necessarily saying you should show resentment or hate.
I get it, but
not
I'm just
exerting the same level of love if you are sending love into a black hole.
Oh yeah, no, I get it, and that's why I said, that's, kind of where you have to have the love for yourself and the respect for yourself and your time and worth. And that's the loving yourself first before you can love others. So then you start loving others. But if you're not reciprocating it from that person you are giving it to, then you have the love and respect for yourself to back off a little. And so, like, even if it's like a homeless man, you give him 5 minutes of your time and you get him some food or something, you're giving the loving act. And even if he's not reciprocating it, okay, well, I'm walking away and I'm never going to see him again in my life. Maybe I do. And then he does reciprocate some love. He gives you that smile. He gives you a handshaking and tells you how much he appreciated it and asks if there's anything he can do for you. I've had that happen. And then he is reciprocating it. And in that time, okay, I'll give you another 5 minutes. I'll give you another 10 minutes. But if not, give him a little wave, a little smile, and I carry on with my day if I saw him again, There's no reason, if he's not reciprocating, if he's not echoing the energy I'm putting out, then, put it to somewhere that can. But in that same sense, or in that same moment, I'm not going to give him the hate or resentment for him to easily echo that back.
I think you put it very well what you should do if the love isn't reciprocated, and that's what I was trying to get at earlier.
Well, thank you for pushing me for that, pushing my buttons. Like, come on, Shondwood, understand what I'm putting down. But I see now I just maybe wasn't articulating it in the right way.
So I think we should be starting to wrap up this episode here. So what do you think the key takeaways of this episode are?
I think number one is you have to start with loving yourself. Self-discipline as self-love, as the God as the God Will Smith once said. Self-discipline is self-love. That's so that you have it to give to others. You have to first formulate it with yourself, and then with others, give the love, the emotion without an expectation or conditions. There's no expectation, no obligation. It's an emotion that you are putting off, and emotion is energy, and people, if they want to, will echo that energy back to you. And if they do not, there is no reason, if there is no expectations, there is no reason for the hate or resentment or any negative feeling to be pushed off on them because you're feeling hurt that you didn't get something in return. Because then if you didn't get something in return, you're upset. That's not love. That's not being kind. Like, you don't do something kind just to get something kind in return. That's not being kind.
No, I definitely think you have...
Did I hit all the stuff? Like, is there something that stood out to you?
I think you covered it all. I think there's nothing more that I can really add. So I
love love, if you guys haven't noticed. Love is a topic that I like to think about. I like to read about. It's all around us.
It's always important to talk about what we're passionate on.
Yeah. And once you let go of those expectations with love, sometimes it can be hard, especially with family members. Dear God, that's difficult. But once you do, it just flows. It flows so easily.
Absolutely. So on that note, this is the end of the episode about love. We hope to see you in the next one. This has been The Risk of Insanity.